Hello, this is the Book Club on the Wireless. I am Zukhanye Duda, and today I am joined by Dorrette. Now, she is the Director of Operations Program from Book Dash. Now, for people that are not quite sure what Book Dash is about, they are an NPO organization and they mainly focus on feeding the minds of the little ones. And today we get the opportunity to get or hear a deeper understanding of who they are and what they do. Dorrette, thank you so much for making time and joining us.
Thank you very much for having me. It's always lovely to be able to talk about the work we do.
Yes, and you guys are doing an incredible job. Kudos to you. Now, can we start here? Can you please tell us, where did it all start?
Sure, yes. Book Dash, actually, it's a big year for us. We're turning 10. And so in 2014, Book Dash was started. It was started by people who were all publishing people, publishing professionals who understood how important it is for young children to own books,
Yes,
and to read books very frequently. And who found that the problem was that books are really expensive.
yes.
And they are often, if you do find them in shops and you can afford to buy them, they're not very relevant to South African children and to South African families. And so the problem was how to create many affordable books that were also relevant, in which children can see themselves reflected. And that's when they reimagined the whole publishing process, because traditional publishing works in a certain way.
Yes.
And the result is that there are lots of skilled professionals in that whole chain that all get paid for their skills. And so they reimagined the process to say, what if we ask people with those same skills, those same really good professional publishing skills, whether it's illustration or writing or design, to volunteer their time? Okay. And what if we brought them together in one room and we get them to collaborate and actually have a short time period, and we treat it a little bit like a hackathon? Let's see what happens. And that's how the Book Dash model was born. And so even today, we follow that same model where professional people volunteer their time and their skills and their passion. They work together in teams and they produce brand new African children's books, picture books, which are then open sourced.
Nice.
Which means that there's no copyright on them and people can use them for whatever purpose they want. So that's the kind of the origin story of Book Dash. It was born out of a recognition of the need for abundant book ownership of appropriate books, and that there was just nothing that filled that gap.
That is so interesting. Now, can you tell us, what is Book Dash's vision and mission?
So the vision is that every child should own 100 books by the age of 5.
Nice.
Yes, it's a vision. It's a vision of abundance. And it's, 2/3 of all the households in South Africa don't own a single children's book. So that is quite staggering. It means that a very small proportion of children in South Africa have books in the home. And we know that that's a real problem, because if you do grow up in a household with books, it's been proven over and over again in many studies, internationally and in South Africa, that if you grow up with books in the home, you grow up with adults reading with you, you grow up in that close connection with an adult who reads aloud to you before you can even read yourself. It puts you on the path to success. It can actually alter the trajectory of a child's life. And so our vision is this vision of abundance, saying every child should own 100 books by the age of 5. But even if a child owned 10 books or 15 books or 20 books, we know from research literature that it already makes a massive difference to that child's academic prospects and kind of development in general.
That is so nice. Now, I know that you guys host an event for 12 hours making books, right? Now, can you please tell us more about that?
Yes, so those are the Book Dash events. That's where the organization gets its name from also. And they are these amazing it's almost like a creative marathon. And we have them I have one or two of them per year, and we tend to rotate between Johannesburg and Cape Town and Durban.
All right.
Because we need to host these events in places where there's a large creative community, because we are dependent on the creative community to volunteer for the event.
Yes.
And so we advertise for the event about months before the time, and people then apply. So we ask them to send us a portfolio of their work, whether they apply as a writer, an illustrator, a designer, or an editor. Those are the four that we need in the room on a book dash day. And we then get many, many applications, and we are in the very lucky position that we can then select people that we think will do really well on the day, who we think from their kind of motivation letters and their portfolios are very good at working in a team. People who can work really fast, because you need to work really, really fast to be able to make a new children's book from scratch in only 12 hours. And so we put the teams together, and we also usually try and have a nice mix between people who are really experienced and established already, and people who are at the beginning of their career, so that there's also this kind of learning opportunity and a professional development opportunity for young creatives who are starting out. And so once we've got our people in place, we have 10 writers, 10 illustrators, 10 designers, and usually 4 editors. Then our next important task is to put those people together in teams. So we get just a story idea from the writers, very rough, very broad outline of what they want to write about at the book dash day, and we then match the story idea to an illustrator. So if it's a story idea, right, it's an animal story, then we look at which illustrator is really good at drawing animals, and the designer, and so we put the teams together before the event. But they only meet each other at the event. They only meet each other on the Saturday morning. Yes.
That is interesting.
Yes, so it's a very intense and kind of contracted event. So on a Saturday morning at 9:00, they meet each other, and then they start collaborating. And I think that's the important thing to understand about our events, is that usually when you work on a children's picture book, you work in isolation. So you as the writer write the story, then the illustrator illustrates the story. But the illustrator can't really make suggestions on how to change the story to make it easier to illustrate, better to illustrate, to make it more impactful. Whereas our model relies on the collaboration. That is the magic, the magical, like the secret ingredient almost, is the fact that the first activity of the day is where the writer, designer, illustrator, and editor sit together and actually brainstorm the story out all the way through, from beginning to end, what goes on each page, what illustration will help to tell the story best on each of these spreads. And then they get going. And the evening at 8:00, the books are finished, and we have what we call story time, which is where all the teams actually, each team reads their story. We project it. It's not printed by that stage, but it's done. And the story is then kind of projected to the whole audience, and the team gets to share their new story with everyone who was there on the day. And that's quite a magical moment for us.
Nice. That is so nice. Now, before I let you go, I want to know, how can we as parents or people with young children in our families encourage children to read?
I think the way to encourage children to read is to actually read to them long before they can read. So reading with young children should start at birth or even earlier. There's a whole movement about reading to your bump when you're pregnant, even.
Yes.
Because what reading gives, the opportunity it creates, is an opportunity for closeness and for bonding between a parent or a caregiver and a very young child, even babies, even newborns. You put them on your lap. It's an intimate moment where they feel close, they feel safe, they feel secure. The adult reads to them, they love your voice. And as they get older, in that safe, secure environment of the parent or the caregiver's lap, they start responding to the pictures that they see. Long before they have language that they can say even. They will start pointing. They will be focused on something that really catches their attention. And all of that is so important for children's development, for their vocabulary development, for their language development, for their brain development, for their socio-emotional development. And those are the things that you need to have in place by the time a child learns to read themselves. And by that stage, if you've been reading to them often, from when they were very young, they will love reading, and they will know that words on a page mean something, and they will know that a story is fun, and they will know that reading is something that's really joyful. And that is the way that we can encourage reading, is by reading aloud to young children and babies from the very beginning.
That is so true. That is so true. I totally agree. And my last question for you is, how can we get involved?
So just to this links nicely to the previous question. All our stories, we've got 211 stories that we've made at our 12-hour events. They're all published on our website. Our website is just www.book-org.
Yes.
They're all available for reading for free on the website. There's no paywall. You don't have to register. You don't have to do anything. You can just go in and read the stories. And so the 211 stories are in English, but we've also translated those stories into a library of more than 850 South African language versions of the stories. So we've got stories available in all 11 of South Africa's official languages. So my recommendation is that people, to get involved, is go and read our stories and spread the word and get more people to read our stories to children. We also print our stories. We've printed and distributed more than 4 million books so far in South Africa.
Incredible.
But it starts with parents reading with their children and caregivers reading with their children and grannies and uncles and neighbors reading with the young children in their lives. And you can use the Book Dash website to get going.
Thank you so much, Doreen, for joining us today. What an interesting conversation. And I would like to say that we as the Wireless wish you guys nothing but the best, because you are doing an incredible job, and the whole initiative is just incredible. So thank you so much once again for joining us.
Thank you, Zukhanye, and thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. That is Dorrette from Book Dash. You can go check their website. They are www.thebookdash.org.